Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Hi, nice to see so many kind of friendly faces out there in the out there. My name's John Cassidy. I look after all of the work that Accenture does with Salesforce in Australia and New Zealand, and all the service cloud and service transformation work we do with Salesforce globally. You don't need to adjust your headsets. Really do sound like this. I was originally born on the west coast of Scotland. I became an academic of all things, looking at combinatorial ways in which you discover pharmaceuticals. Then I moved into valuing different types of technologies and did that for about a decade. Then moved to look at how these technologies apply to transforming major customer experiences. It got me into the Salesforce ecosystem where I started in sports, telcos, banking, and other places. And I'm here to talk today about what's next. At Accenture, we're an enormous technology company. So we look very closely about what's coming around the corner, what the vision for what things will impact us in the next 3 to 5 years. And for the last 19 years, we've been running this technology vision. I want to bring that to you today and look at how Salesforce applies to that technology vision. So it starts off with maybe a dozen of us sitting around and shooting the breeze about what's going to happen next around technology. It rolls out across hundreds of employees across Accenture, thousands of clients, dozens of different geographies, and looks to 3 to 5 years' time at what we should be investing in, what we should be taking to our clients, where we're going to point and put our company. And it's been tremendously important for us. 15 years ago, we identified SaaS as one of the big things that Accenture needed to invest in. We went big. We were the first large player to go big and maintained a market share and size that we've kept ever since. 5 years ago, we looked at every business being a digital business, looked at the business of it doesn't matter whether you're in retail or communications. The important thing was competence and technology as a defining thing of what you would do next. And that led us into investing billions in the last few years in retooling ourselves and building ourselves in technology. And now we're at the next phase of what happens. And really, it all started with a question. So it all started looking at what happens in this world where everyone's investing in digital. The technologies of social, mobile, analytics, and the cloud have driven enormous things. 1.1 million times people swipe right on Twitter. 139 million Google searches a second. 247,000 views of Netflix a second, 139 million emails that we're all sending and receiving and pushing around a second. And we've all been on a journey in the last 5 years where digital groups have grown up in our organizations, digital teams, digital projects. Collectively, we invested $1.1 trillion last year in digital. But what happens when we all start investing in the same types of things at the same types of time? Where's the competitive advantage in everyone doing the same thing? When you look at the history of technology, if you go back to electricity, to steam engines, to CRM, to ERP, to client servers, there's a point where the first people in that market were able to take advantage and drive business benefits and revenue growth. The later people in that market see cost efficiencies, and over time that market dissipates and the competitive advantage gets petered out. What happens next in digital when we're all looking at the same things? And we think that there's a tremendous road to go in driving the value out of digital. Less than 10% of workloads in clouds, less than 20% of transactions online, but we can already see this new horizon. We can already see what's coming next. And the people that will adapt to what's coming next, the people who respond to it, the ones who are likely to become more successful. So this post-digital era is upon us, and we see that there's 5 characteristics of what digital means for societies, for organizations, for ways that we treat each other, for ways that we treat customer data. And I'll go through each of these 5, but let's just talk of each one quickly in turn. Dark. Now, I cannot tell you how excited our marketing people was when we managed to line up all the acronyms that were distributed ledgers, AI, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, and quantum computing in the one acronym. But we think there's a next set of technologies that are going to come on and take place that are being even more profound than the ones we're working on right now. Getting to know me. We already know great things about customers. The machines around us are starting to give intimate information about us. How do we combine those two things? And how do we combine them to maintain the balance between personalization and privacy, which is going to be one of the defining things of the next era? Human plus work, human plus. We've invested a lot of time in machines. We've invested a lot of time in how we give superhuman powers to humans in our organization, but we still treat them as if it's the 1950s in the way we recruit them, the way we train them, the way we augment them. The winning organizations are going to be ones who do something different with their employees. Securing us to secure me. We're more and more connected as organizations, as individuals, as companies, as ecosystems. And each one of us is a potential vector for the whole ecosystem. How do we, instead of securing as individuals, as other companies, secure the wider ecosystem? And then my markets, which I think is the most interesting and fundamental piece here. Technology between personalization and real-time delivery is opening up these moments of opportunity, these momentary markets that open and close quickly. And how can we fulfill these moments and close? How can we respond and act accordingly? So let's go through each one. And I'll kind of give the relationship where Salesforce has got a huge part to play in them. And then I'll wrap it up at the end, which should take about 20 minutes. So, dark power. So, digital's not dead. The technologies we're working on aren't going to go away. But there's a new set of things in town that require new competencies to be built that we're already seeing ahead of us. Let's take them one by one. Distributed ledgers. So, where you see a middleman acting between yourself and another party and giving privacy and giving security of a transaction, we see an enormous potential to change. We see an enormous potential in banking, in government, in utilities for taking out those pieces of the value chain. Already, $3 billion were invested in the last 2 quarters on cryptocurrencies. $1.7 billion was invested in using distributed ledgers and supply chains. We're at the start of what's possible in these industries. Accenture already are applying this in resources. We're applying this to places like Identity 2020, a UN initiative where we're taking migrants, undocumented people, and giving them a way of securing their identity and sharing it in a manner that suits them. AI. So probably the most talked about, but perhaps the least wide understood of the trends that we're looking into. So the ability for our systems to learn, to adapt, to reason, and to act as agents on our behalf and act in an intelligent way is one of the things that's the most exciting across all of technology. 3 things have come together in the last 5 years to make this stuff possible. The use of deep learning systems to mimic the way the human's brain works in system terms. The backpropagation algorithm to be able to solve across those distributed systems. And then ways in which we supervise the learning to prime the pump of these systems. We already see it. You've seen all the stuff about Einstein today. Einstein voice can recognize, well, maybe not my Scottish accent, but can recognize voice, put it directly into systems. Einstein Analytics can give you suggestions of what's next. Einstein Chat can knock out and create bots for interactions that act like an agent. We're just at the start of what's possible around this. Imagine that you have bots, machines capable of the higher order reasoning than all your employees. What will that mean for your organization? What will that mean for your business? VR, so extended reality. We already spend 3 hours a day looking at our phones. 3 hours a day. In 5 years' time, that's going to look the same as people, with a quill and an ink blot writing on paper. Machines are starting to interact with us differently. Wearable computing, virtual reality headsets. The nature of reality and how we consume information is fundamentally changing. Now, you see the basic examples already. You see examples of training, how people in heavy industries are starting to consume training through VR headsets. You see the examples in gaming, games like The Impatient, where VR combines with AI to immerse yourself in the game and the choices within that game with AI actors are taking there. What if this gets applied at scale and reality is different. What does it mean for aged care? For people who can't move from their homes to have realities given to them? What does it mean for the entertainment industry, where interactions become different with actors and movies and music? What does it mean for places like education, where access to the best teacher in the world isn't limited by the size of the classroom or the ability to film that or the ability to interact with individuals, but can be opened up to a wider set of people? Each of these ways of interacting fundamentally changes how we experience technology and how we experience reality and how we're going to experience each other. It's hugely disruptive. And the last trend we really see is quantum computing. Despite all the advances in software, all the advances in hardware, some problems are just too intractable for the way the computers are designed today. NP problems, P problems, problems around protein folding, problems around complex traffic optimization don't work effectively and have to be brute forced. The ability to use quantum mechanics as a method of computing, from moving from ones and zeros to qubits, changes the way that we can solve some of these problems. And already today, you see organizations, D-Wave, Alibaba, IBM, looking at computers. And these are the same computers that you'd have seen 60 years ago in Hewlett and Packard's garage in California. The cooling doesn't really work. You have to use helium-3 to maintain the quantum states of the qubits as they go through calculations. The cabling's really hard to get to. They're hard to make practical. They're 1% ready for prime time. The way that these technologies work is they double in quality, they double in efficiency every year. So we're only 7 years away from these things being mass market. We're only 7 years away from these being the default ways. And what does that mean for security, for the cryptography keys that we have today, for the way that we address problems, for the next level of AI? Looking at these things already and looking at how these apply to the business is important. In the area of social, mobile, analytics, and cloud, the people that got in first and developed those competencies were the ones who moved the fastest and got the business benefits. I've probably spent 10, 12 years of my life trying to take bits of information from organizations, maybe a fixed mobile phone, and a fixed phone and a mobile phone, or maybe a banking record, an insurance record, a sales record, a service transit record, and put them together in a 360 view of a customer. And that's delivered enormous value. Salesforce is a great product for putting all that information there, giving a 360 view of the customer. But the trouble with a 360 view is it's only skin deep. You know who I am, you know the interactions I've had with an organization. You don't know if I'm pissed off. You don't know how I'm feeling. You don't know the interactions I've got there. You don't know the propensity of me to buy. You don't really know my intent and who I am. Technology is already here that's explaining my intent and who I am to you. I've got a box at home. It sits and listens to my family all day, called Alexa. It records everything we do, everything we say. It categorizes our social demographics, how much money I make, the conversations I'm having, the intent I've got, how many children I've got, how many people visit me all the time, where I live, what I do, what I want to watch, what do I talk about. And it uses that information for goodness knows what. Wall Street Journal last week, 25% of applications they looked at in your mobile phone are taking that information and sending it directly to Facebook without your knowledge, without your consent. Information about how fast your heart's beating, whether you've been using an app to watch your weight and how well that's going for you. It's looking at your taking your mobile phone number when you've given that for two-party authentication, and looking at where that mobile phone number exists and everywhere else it's got around Facebook and making those connections. So combining information we know about the person and combining the intent that's available from technology gives us huge opportunities around personalization, great ways of defining the next customer experience, doing what we can. But 3 billion identities stolen last year. Facebook, Google, other web giants seeing huge issues arising about the way they handle that data. The balance between personalization and privacy, what you could do with what you maybe should do, what you might do with what you really shouldn't do, is an important defining issue of our time. Technologies are coming, that are coming, and they're coming at pace to let us do this. Now, trust is the #1 issue that we see defining the next stage in how we interact, how we deal with this intimate consumer information and what we do with it. It helps if you have this as a core value. Someone like Salesforce has in some ways been miles ahead of the game, establishing trust as a core thing about them. They might not get everything right all the time, but the intent to do the right thing, the intent to be open and transparent, is really a competitive advantage these days. So we've got great power with these dark technologies. We've got great issues around privacy. Human plus. So if you're a Service Cloud customer, if you're using the Service Cloud, things have changed immeasurably. We're putting enormous capabilities into humans' hands. The ability to have recommendations given to you by deep learning, to be able to interrogate knowledge bases all around the world to solve a customer problem, to jump in with SOS to a video call to be able to see someone face to face, to use guided flows and automation through Lightning to be able to quicken what you do, to be able to record information with Einstein Voice and put that there. We're giving humans huge powers, and we're giving them new technologies to learn, and we're changing the jobs, but the way that we hire them and the way that we develop them, it's really hardly moved on in 20 years, and technologies are changing that. So many of you will be here looking for the next candidate, trying to work on your projects or your companies and your organizations. It takes 10 days for someone who's really qualified in Salesforce to get off the market. Someone with the right skills, someone who's got experience, certified, they're on there for 10 days. So how do you recruit in your organizations? How do you attract people in your organizations when the movement between HR processes and hiring is different from that pace? So Unilever has been looking at this, and they've done away with the thoughts in some of the parts of the organization of going job description, right, let's send that out, we'll interview a bunch of people, and then because I look the way I am, I'll hire people who look like who I am, and to asking people quizzes, to giving them memory games to test, testing the appetite for risk across these games, doing different things. And when they did that, they found that the hiring process went down from 4 months to 4 weeks, because AI was able to take that information and select where they would fit best within their organization and their company. And also, when they did that, they found as well that the whole process and the diversity went just rocketing upwards for the people that were coming in through the processes. So the ability to use data done well. How do we grow our organization? We're asking a lot of our people. We're asking them to learn new technology. We're asking them to automate. We're asking them to move into a new world. But are we really developing and training them and moving them the way that we could? Trailhead, if you haven't been familiar with it, get familiar with it. A great platform for learning. A great platform for continual development, for moving through your career from technical to other things. As Accenture, we've got 470,000 people in our organization. We use AI to categorize what they've done based on the projects, the track record, the performance reviews, where the geography, where they sit, and give specialized recommendation and learning that works about 93% of the time. And we're transparent with our employees about how we do that and what it means and can correct that stuff. How do you treat the humans that are valuable to your workplace differently and use new technologies to really enable them, expand what these superpowers we're giving them can do? We have yet to meet an organization who's giving great customer experience who doesn't have great human experience within them. So, we've got dark powers. We've got privacy concerns. We've got humans in the mix. Security used to be a thing where companies could act like a village and put a security box up on the wall, and then the house next door would get robbed and everyone would be fine. The security threats today aren't like that. They're more like a fire coming down to burn down the whole village rather than just being one house being picked off. We're all increasingly reliant on ecosystems of each other. We're all in the Salesforce ecosystem. We rely on communications infrastructure. We rely on Amazon Web Services for the physical infrastructure. We rely on Salesforce applications. The Salesforce applications connect to your ERP, connect to your commerce applications, connect to other people. These pieces of connectivity are very important, And people are looking for the weak link across ecosystems, not looking to attack whole ecosystems themselves. And we need to think differently about how we manage and look at security. New York City, tremendously stovepiped organization, tremendous kind of barriers to look at that, broke them down with a cybersecurity unit and looked at threats and threat mitigations across the whole city. Found 149 ways to act differently, to give remediations and ways of stopping threats occurring. Within 4 months, they were stopping 500 different types of intrusion every single day. In the payments industry, MasterCard, JP Morgan Chase, Fidelity, got together and looked at what would a distributed attack across all of our payment systems look like, and how would we respond? No surprise when they did that 4 months ago, the different operational ways they have for responding to critical issues across their payments infrastructure, which is hugely related, they're all different. There must be ways of improving that and improving the resilience from that. Securing us to secure me is important as the threats come from is different. My wife's Ukrainian. Spent a lot of time in Kiev. You know, the threats that come to Kiev on the national critical infrastructure around ATMs, around critical powers, are dealt with on a national level. The world's becoming more complex, more interconnected, and how we think in Australia about organizing ourselves, our industries to that, will be important to stop things falling over. This, I think, is the most interesting one. This is the one that excites me most, my markets. So, traditionally, we've always had a great idea for product. That's fantastic. We found some customers, sold that product to the customers. It's been great. And then we thought, oh, I know I can sell them again. I'll sell them a second product and a third. And then comes a point in time where the economics of distributing multiple products become too great. 6, 7 product, the incremental costs of doing that and the incremental yield from those products cost becomes high, yield becomes low. Some of that's changing. So if we can use AI to identify trends and products earlier, if we can use different methods of creating products with 3D printing, if we can use robotics to build things at a smaller scale, if we can use 4G networks and sensors to refactor factories in a moment, what could we do that's differently? How can we find these momentary markets that open and close very quickly and sense and respond accordingly? So, give you an example. Paperboat, an beverage company in India. And beverage is beverage new product development. It's very traditional. So you come up with an idea, build a small batch, have some people taste a small batch, build a bigger batch, run a pilot, roll it out, refactor your organization, build up a factory, distribute it, sell it. They've flipped that in the head in a way you don't get from incremental improvement or Six Sigma. What if we can poll customers all across the world, all across India with WhatsApp and get information for what taste they want on an individual day related to weather, to festivals, to other things that are going on? What if we can then use AI to figure those clusters where we can make profits? What if we then can refactor our factories because they're built with robotics to be able to automatically build small batch yields? May run for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, not 6 months, 9 months, 12 months as you have for other beverage companies. Huge success in creating these momentary markets and responding to yields and runs of 3 days, of 2 days, of individual areas, and doing so in a profitable manner. So our ability to personalize and give real-time execution of those ideas opens up new ways of thinking and new markets for us all. So, dark's really important. They're the next technologies to get around. Privacy, definitional issue for all of us in this room. The ability to manage our people and give these superhumans your careers, hugely important. Security and how we think about security ecosystems and these momentary markets are 5 things that really define this post-digital era for us all. So what do you do? How do you get started? Well, the first thing is digital transformations and where we are need to be completed. We will not, organizations that won't have the fundamentals in place won't be able to satisfy even the basics of some of these issues and opportunities that we're talking about. Defining what's really important for your industry is going to be next. Where is your company going to be affected most by those things? And how are you going to respond? And how are you going to take advantage of platforms like Salesforce that are investing billions in R&D in these areas? Where are you going to take the million or the 2 million or the 500,000 or the 400,000 and do that one or two things that are really unique for your organization that will make a difference? And how are you going to have a different level of accountability within your organizations? The intimate nature of these technologies, of what we know about humans, and how we deal with that requires a different level of responsibility. It used to be said that data is the new gold, it's the new oil. That increasingly is bullshit. Data is a unique individual thing about a human being, and how we create that and how we manage the value exchange of those unique pieces of data will separate the people who gain trust in the organizations from the people that lose trust, and the winners and the losers. So, the post-digit world's amongst this. It's here. You can see where it's coming. We're never going to have a time in our lives when things will move so slowly. So it's only going to get faster from here. It's only going to get quicker from here. The pace is also only going to increase. So as your organizations, as your friends and your families go through all these trails, I wish you all the best in this post-digital world. Thank you very much for listening to us all.